Imagine waking up every day with a crystal-clear sense of purpose, not swayed by setbacks, unfazed by the chaos around you, and relentlessly focused on what truly matters. It sounds almost superhuman, doesn't it? Yet this was the everyday reality for Marcus Aurelius. Now ask yourself this: why isn't that your reality? What's stopping you from living with that same unshakable clarity? Is it really the world around you, or is it what's going on inside you? The truth burns a little, doesn't it? Most people don't lack time, they lack direction. They don't lack motivation, they lack discipline. They let every mood, every opinion, every urge pull them like a leaf in the wind. And here's the part no one wants to hear. Self-discipline isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, brick by brick, choice by choice. That's what the Stoics knew. That's what they lived. And today, we're peeling back the comfort, the excuses, the lies we tell ourselves, to reveal what it really takes to master your mind and reclaim your life. Because if you're not in control of yourself, something or someone else is, and that should terrify you. If you feel that pull toward something higher, toward clarity, strength, and peace, then please subscribe. Not for more noise, but for less of it. For focus, for truth, for the rare kind of content that challenges you to rise, not escape. This isn't just another video, it's a step forward, toward who you were meant to be. 1. Know your purpose or get pulled by noise. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it feels to be pulled in 1,000 directions? You start the day with good intentions, maybe even a to-do list, but by noon you're buried under texts, notifications, and sudden obligations that you didn't plan for. And the worst part, none of it even feels important. You go to bed drained, unsure of what you actually accomplished, and this strange emptiness creeps in, the sense that your time is slipping away and you're not really living it. That feeling, that's the cost of not knowing your purpose. It's not that you're lazy, it's not that you're incapable, it's that your energy is being spread thin across things that don't align with who you are. And without a strong inner compass, the world will happily offer you 1,000 things to care about, and none of them will truly fulfill you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." That wasn't just a philosophical musing, it was a call to action, a reminder that life is happening now, and unless you anchor yourself to what truly matters, you'll be constantly reacting instead of deliberately living. You see, purpose isn't some grand declaration you make once and tattoo on your wall. It's not something you discover in a flash of inspiration while meditating on a mountaintop. It's something you define and then live every single day. It's how you direct your energy, how you choose your priorities, how you say no to what's meaningless and yes to what builds your character. You don't rise by accident, you rise on purpose. A strong sense of purpose doesn't shield you from pain or stress, but it gives your suffering direction. When you know your why, even difficult days gain value. The discomfort becomes part of the process instead of something to run from. But here's the thing, knowing your purpose doesn't require having your entire life mapped out. We live in a culture that romanticizes 10-year plans and 5-step blueprints for success. But the Stoics remind us that the future is not guaranteed. Epictetus taught that we should focus on what is within our control, our thoughts, our actions, our intentions, and let go of the rest. So instead of obsessing over distant goals, the real question is, what's worth your time today? Not what the world says is urgent, not what everyone else is chasing, but what you, in your quiet, honest moments, believe is essential. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that starts with deciding what you're not. You're not just a passive observer in your own life. You're not a collection of reactions to other people's expectations, and you're definitely not here to spend your life constantly busy but rarely fulfilled. You're meant to act, not drift. And the only way to act with clarity is to know what your actions are in service of. Let's break this down practically. If you're unsure of your purpose, start small. Look at your life, not your dreams, your life, and ask, what am I naturally drawn to? What kind of challenges energize me rather than drain me? What am I willing to suffer for, not just dabble in? These are clues. Maybe you love solving problems. Maybe you come alive when you help others. Maybe deep down, you crave solitude so you can create something meaningful. Your purpose isn't hiding from you. It's just been buried under noise. And when you begin listening, really listening, it starts to rise to the surface. The Stoics practiced daily reflection to keep their purpose sharp. Each morning they would prepare for the day with intention. Each evening they would ask themselves, did I live in alignment with my values today? You don't need more time. You need more clarity. If you wake up and immediately reach for your phone, you've already started your day in reaction mode. What if, instead, you gave yourself 5 minutes to ask, what matters most today? Who do I want to be today? What kind of actions would make me proud when I reflect tonight? Seneca warned us about this scattered way of living. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And it's true. So many people are stuck in a loop of urgency, reacting to every ping and push notification, thinking they're being productive when they're actually just being used. Your attention is your life. Where it goes, you go. And if you don't direct it with intention, the world will direct it for you. Let's say you identify a purpose today, to become more courageous, more kind, more creative. Great. Now make your actions align. When you hit a moment of resistance, pause and ask, does this choice align with who I'm trying to become? It's such a simple filter, but it can change your life. Because discipline becomes a lot easier when you're not just forcing yourself to grind. You're reminding yourself that every decision is either helping you build your ideal life or dragging you further from it. Even modern psychology supports this. Studies show that people with a clear sense of purpose are more resilient, more emotionally stable, and even live longer. Purpose gives meaning to effort. It makes sacrifice feel like investment. It turns self-discipline from something cold and rigid into something sacred, because now you're not just saying no to distractions, you're saying yes to something bigger. Here's something powerful you can do right now. Write down your top 3 values. Not things you wish you valued, but what really matters to you: integrity, growth, compassion, courage, creativity, whatever it is. Then ask, are my daily habits aligned with these? If not, where's the gap? What's one thing I could do today that honors one of those values? That's how you start turning vague purpose into clear action. And when life inevitably gets messy, and it will, you come back to those values. You come back to that internal compass. That's what the Stoics did. They anchored themselves in virtues, not circumstances. Because circumstances change. Chaos is part of life. But values? Values are steady. They give you something to hold on to when everything else feels like it's falling apart. Chasing fleeting pleasure or avoiding discomfort isn't the point. Purpose doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels hard, but it always feels right. It's what wakes you up with clarity and lets you sleep with peace. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, scattered, pulled by everyone else's demands, pause. Ask yourself, what am I here to do? Not in the grand sense of legacy, but in the practical sense of today. What's the kind of person you want to be? What matters more than the rest? Start there. And if you stay consistent in answering that question, not only will you gain clarity, you'll gain power. quiet, steady, deeply grounded power. Because at the end of the day, as the Stoics remind us, it's not the external events that shape us, it's our internal decisions. And when your decisions are anchored in purpose, you become unshakable, not perfect, not immune, but clear, focused, and alive in a way most people never allow themselves to be. 2. Rely on yourself. Nobody's coming to save you. There comes a moment in life, usually after enough disappointments, enough delays, enough letdowns, when you realize something that's both terrifying and freeing. No one is coming to save you. Not your boss, not your partner, not your parents, not some magical version of your future self who has it all figured out, just you. And I know that sounds harsh, but really it's one of the most powerful things you can realize, because once you stop waiting for someone to hand you a better life, you start building one, piece by piece, habit by habit, decision by decision. That's where real self-discipline begins, not from outside pressure, but from internal conviction. From the moment you stop outsourcing your strength and start relying on the one person who's going to be with you for the rest of your life, you. The Stoics were very clear on this. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And mastery doesn't come from leaning on others every time life gets heavy. It comes from developing your own inner structure, your own mental tools, your own standards. In fact, the Stoics saw relying too much on external forces, circumstances, people, praise, as a recipe for emotional chaos. Because what happens when those things disappear? What happens when the people you counted on fall short, or the system you believed in breaks down? If your sense of stability is tied to something outside of you, then you're never truly secure. You're always vulnerable, always one change away from collapsing. That's not strength. That's dependence dressed up as hope. Now, this doesn't mean you shut everyone out or try to live like some isolated monk. That's not the point. Stoicism isn't about rejecting help. It's about recognizing where your true control lies. Marcus Aurelius put it like this: "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." He wasn't preaching self-isolation. He was talking about sovereignty, about learning to be the kind of person who can accept help but doesn't need it in order to act. There's a massive difference. And let's be honest, many of us have fallen into this trap. We keep waiting for the perfect conditions, the right time to start, the right coach to show up, the right book to unlock everything. But that's just fear in disguise, fear dressed as preparation. And every day you wait is a day you could have taken action. Every day you lean on someone else's vision is a day you ignore your own. You don't need more information. You need more responsibility. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And awakening, that starts with ownership. Owning your choices, your progress, your discipline. Here's where this gets really real. Self-discipline is impossible without self-trust. Think about it. How can you stick to your habits, your goals, your values, if you don't trust your own word? If every time you say, "I'm going to start tomorrow," you know deep down that you probably won't, then your brain stops believing you. And if your brain doesn't believe you, then discipline becomes this exhausting uphill battle. But when you start keeping small promises to yourself, wake up when you said you would, finish the task you set, say no when you need to, you begin to rebuild that trust. Slowly, steadily, and over time, you stop needing outside pressure to move. You become self-propelled. That's when things change. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." And that's a heavy truth. If you don't govern your own actions, someone else will do it for you. Whether it's society, your job, your addictions, or your fears. If you don't lead your life, something else will. That's why Stoicism places so much emphasis on self-governance, on being your own authority, because freedom, real freedom, doesn't come from doing whatever you want whenever you want. It comes from doing what's right even when it's hard. And that kind of freedom, that's built, not granted. So what does relying on yourself actually look like in daily life? It looks like building systems instead of waiting for motivation. It looks like taking initiative without being asked. It looks like being honest with yourself when you're slacking and gently but firmly getting back on track. It means turning down shortcuts that don't serve your long-term growth. It means being your own coach, your own cheerleader, and sometimes your own drill sergeant. It means replacing excuses with action, not because someone's watching, but because you are. Psychologist William James, often called the father of modern psychology, said, "A man has as many social selves as there are individuals who recognize him." But Stoicism would flip that. It would say, the only self that matters is the one you recognize when no one else is looking. That's who you're accountable to. That's who you're building discipline for. And when that version of you becomes strong, solid, reliable, consistent, everything else falls into place. You stop needing approval. You stop chasing validation. You stop waiting for someone to tell you you're ready. You just start. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Taking full responsibility means you can't blame anyone anymore. You can't say, "I failed because they didn't help me," or "I stopped because no one believed in me." That's over. You're not in the blame game anymore. You're in the building game. And building is slow. It's repetitive. It's gritty, but it's also honest. There's no confusion. Either you did the work or you didn't. And that kind of clarity is rare in a world that thrives on noise. Now, here's the secret that most people miss. The more you rely on yourself, the more powerful your connections with others become. Because you're not coming from a place of neediness. You're not clinging to people out of fear. You're choosing relationships based on values, not dependency. You bring strength into the room, not just demands. And that kind of energy, it attracts people who are also rooted in themselves. It creates partnerships, not rescues, mutual respect, not emotional debt. The Stoics understood this deeply. They weren't loners. They valued community, friendship, mentorship, but only when it was built on strength, not reliance. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." But how can you improve if you're always leaning, if you're always waiting? You have to become someone worth associating with. Someone who lifts others not by preaching, but by example. So if you're stuck in a cycle of procrastination, second-guessing or blame, here's your reset button. Start where you are, with what you have, and take full ownership of your next decision. Don't look for the perfect plan. Don't wait for the green light. Just do the next right thing. Make the call, clean the room, finish the set, write the page, and then do it again tomorrow. That's how self-reliance is built. Not in one big moment, but in thousands of small ones. So here's the challenge. For the next 7 days, make a promise to yourself every morning. Something small but meaningful. And then keep it. Track it. Celebrate it. And watch how your self-trust begins to grow. Watch how your energy shifts from scattered to grounded. Watch how you begin to move. Not because someone told you to, but because you decided to. Because once you truly rely on yourself, everything changes. You stop waiting, you stop needing, you start leading, and that's when discipline stops being a burden and becomes your superpower. 3. Show up even when you don't feel like it. There's a pattern most people never notice, and it quietly runs their lives. It's this invisible belief that you have to feel like it in order to do it. That motivation needs to show up first, like some magical wave of energy, before you take action. But what happens when it doesn't? What happens on the days you feel flat, tired, discouraged, or just disconnected? Most people wait. They scroll. They distract themselves. They tell themselves tomorrow will be better. But days become weeks. Weeks become months. And before they know it, they're still stuck in the same place, wishing for a breakthrough that never comes. The truth is, if you only show up when you feel like it, you'll never build anything that lasts. Not a career, not a relationship, not self-respect. Because feelings are unpredictable. They rise and fall like the weather. But discipline is the decision to show up anyway. The Stoics understood this in a way we still struggle with. They lived in a time of constant uncertainty, danger, and discomfort. But they didn't wait to feel inspired. They lived by principle, not preference. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work,' as a human being." That line cuts through every excuse, because it's not about being in the mood. It's about rising to meet your role in the world, regardless of how you feel. You don't wait for comfort. You create it through commitment. You don't wait to be great. You practice being consistent. It's strange how modern life has made consistency feel boring. We're so used to instant results and viral success stories that the quiet, steady grind seems unappealing. But think about anything truly worth having. Health, love, purpose, self-mastery. None of it happens overnight. It's built over time, through repetition, through showing up when no one's watching. Carl Jung said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." And that's the hard truth most people avoid. You're not your dreams. You're not your ideas. You're not your potential. You are your habits. You are what you do, especially when it's hard. Showing up isn't glamorous. It's setting your alarm and getting out of bed, even when your body begs for more sleep. It's writing a page even when your mind feels empty. It's doing the workout when your motivation is at zero. It's sticking to your values in conversations when it'd be easier to just nod and agree. It's not about intensity, it's about identity. You do the thing, not because it's easy, not because it's exciting, but because it's who you are now. That shift is everything. When you move from "I have to" "this is what I do," you start becoming the kind of person who keeps promises to themselves. One of the most practical Stoic ideas is the concept of duty. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that each day is a fresh chance to live according to nature. That is, to do what a human being is meant to do. To think clearly, to act justly, to persist with courage. He wasn't talking about grand gestures. He meant the small daily efforts, the way you respond to frustration, the way you carry yourself when no one's around, the way you choose to face difficulty without complaint. The Stoics didn't wait for life to be convenient. They trained themselves to be steady, especially when it wasn't. Here's what most people get wrong about discipline. They think it's about force, about grinding through every day like a machine, but that's not sustainable. The real secret is presence. When you show up, even in a small way, with attention, something shifts. Washing the dishes becomes an act of mindfulness. Writing one paragraph becomes a declaration of progress. Stretching your body becomes a form of self-respect. You don't need to do it all. You just need to do something and do it on purpose. Consistency isn't about intensity, it's about integrity. You don't stumble into excellence, you train for it. And training happens daily, even when you're tired, distracted, or discouraged. Especially then, because anyone can act inspired when things are going well. The question is, who are you when it's dull, when no one's clapping, when the reward is still far away? That's when your character is being built, not by the outcome, but by the effort. Even modern psychology backs this up. Researchers have shown that habits formed by consistent, repeated action shape our identity far more than random bursts of motivation. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, wrote, "Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become." So, what are you voting for today? Because skipping the gym, skipping your writing, skipping your quiet reflection, it's not just missing a task. It's casting a vote for the version of yourself that stays stuck. But every time you show up, even for 5 minutes, you're building something stronger. And it's important to note, showing up doesn't always mean crushing it. Some days you'll be sharp, other days you'll barely crawl through. That's fine. The Stoics didn't demand perfection. They aimed for alignment. Did you do what you said you would, to the best of your ability, in this moment? That's enough. Seneca said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." Sometimes the hardest part isn't the task, it's starting, and once you begin, momentum takes over. The trick is to stop arguing with yourself about whether or not you feel like it. So what's stopping you from showing up today? Are you waiting for the perfect mood, for inspiration to strike, for everything to feel aligned? That's not discipline, that's dependency. That's building your progress on a fragile foundation. Life won't hand you the perfect schedule or the perfect mood. It will hand you moments. And the ones you use well, those are the ones that change you. Showing up is spiritual too. It's you declaring, in the face of noise and chaos, "I still choose to be here. I still choose to try. I still choose to honor my process." It's an act of quiet rebellion against laziness, fear, and passivity, and over time those moments stack. One paragraph becomes a book. One workout becomes a transformation. One honest conversation becomes a healed relationship. And one day, without realizing it, you'll look back and realize you became the kind of person you once looked up to. Not through luck, but through showing up. So if today feels heavy, if your energy is low, if your mind is foggy, show up anyway. Do one small thing, not to impress anyone, not to prove anything, but to become the kind of person who doesn't run from resistance, the kind who shows up and builds, one action at a time. Because that's how you earn your own respect. That's how you build real confidence, not from hype, not from applause, but from doing what needs to be done, especially when it's not easy, especially when it's boring. That's when it counts the most. That's when you become unshakable. That's when you become you. 4. Choose discomfort on purpose. There's a quiet truth most people avoid. Comfort is addictive. It lulls you. It wraps around you like a warm blanket and whispers that you deserve to take it easy, to stay safe, to wait until things feel just right. And in some ways, it's not wrong. There's nothing inherently bad about comfort until it starts costing you your potential, until it starts softening your edges and dulling your ability to face hard things. Because the more you avoid discomfort, the more fragile you become. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't romanticize suffering, but they didn't fear it either. In fact, they chose it on purpose. Voluntary discomfort was a core part of their training, not to punish themselves, but to prepare themselves. Life doesn't care if you're ready. It will test you, with or without your permission. And when it does, the question is simple. Are you mentally tough enough to handle it, or will you collapse at the first sign of resistance? Seneca practiced sleeping on the ground once a month. He wore rough clothing, ate the simplest food, and deliberately exposed himself to what most people would call unnecessary hardship. But he didn't do it because he was a masochist. He did it to remind himself that he could endure the worst and still be okay. He once wrote, Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare. And ask yourself, is this the condition I feared? In other words, when you face what you fear voluntarily, it loses its power over you. You become more stable, less reactive, more in control, and in a world that constantly sells you ease and escape, that kind of inner strength is rare. We've been conditioned to believe that pain is always a sign of something going wrong, that if something feels uncomfortable, we should avoid it. But pain isn't always a signal to run, it's often a signal to grow. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. That hits hard because growth demands friction. You don't build strength by sitting still. You don't develop discipline by choosing the easy way every time. You build it by stepping into the resistance on purpose again and again until discomfort becomes something familiar, not something to fear." Think about it. The best lessons in life often come from the hardest experiences. Heartbreak teaches you emotional depth. Rejection teaches you humility. Struggle teaches you creativity and grit. But what if you didn't wait for life to hand you those lessons? What if you created your own training ground? Small, intentional moments where you chose to be uncomfortable, not because you had to, but because you wanted to grow. That's what Stoics did, and it's what we can still do today. Try skipping a meal once in a while, not because you forgot, but because you want to train your hunger. You want to feel it and realize you won't die, or leave your phone at home for a day. Let your brain itch with the urge to check it, and just sit with that. Or take a cold shower and breathe through the shock, knowing that your comfort zone just got a little wider. These aren't life-altering acts on their own, but they send a powerful message to your nervous system. I'm not afraid of discomfort. I can choose it. I can sit with it. I can move through it and come out stronger. Modern psychology backs this up. Studies on mental toughness show that resilience is like a muscle. It gets stronger with stress, but only if the stress is applied in small, controlled doses. This is called hormesis, and it's the idea that low-level stressors actually make us healthier and more adaptable. That's the genius behind voluntary hardship. You're not traumatizing yourself. You're training yourself. You're exposing your system to manageable discomfort now, so you're not overwhelmed when real adversity shows up later. The Stoics would have thrived in this kind of science. They knew what too many people forget, that avoiding pain doesn't eliminate it, it only delays it. And when it does come, it comes harder, because you've lost the tools to deal with it. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled during plagues, wars, and political betrayal, said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's not just poetic. That's strategy. That's turning obstacles into opportunities. And you can't do that if you're addicted to comfort. You can't do that if every minor stress sends you spiraling. But let's be real. Choosing discomfort isn't easy. It's not sexy. It doesn't give you a dopamine rush. It's not something you can post on Instagram with a cute caption. It's quiet. It's internal. It's you choosing to lean into the resistance while everyone else is leaning away. It's you going for a walk in the rain instead of waiting for the sun. It's you speaking up when it would be easier to stay silent. It's you choosing depth over ease, growth over safety, purpose over pleasure. And yet, this choice changes everything. When you train yourself to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, you become hard to shake. Someone insults you. You breathe through it. You've sat with worse. A plan falls apart. You adapt. You've handled instability before. Life throws something unexpected your way. You don't panic. You respond. Because you've been rehearsing. You've been preparing. You're not some delicate, fragile thing that breaks under pressure. You're forged by pressure, built by it. And every act of voluntary discomfort proves that to you, again and again. Every time you choose the hard way, you cast a vote for the future version of yourself, the one who's clear, grounded, and capable. You're not just surviving life's tests, you're getting ready for them. You're turning pain into preparation. You speak honestly, listen deeply, and confront problems head-on, because avoidance feels safe in the short term, but it erodes trust over time. Discomfort, when chosen wisely, builds intimacy, truth, and mutual respect. So what's one small discomfort you can choose today? Skip the elevator and take the stairs. Speak the truth instead of sugarcoating it. Meditate for 10 minutes when your brain wants to scroll. Eat a plain meal when you'd rather indulge. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be intentional. Because with each choice, you're rewiring your brain. You're sending a message: I don't fear the edge, I walk it. And that message starts to echo louder and louder until discomfort no longer signals danger, it signals transformation. The Stoics believed that discipline wasn't about denying life. It was about mastering it. And mastery doesn't come from avoiding what's hard. It comes from walking into it with open eyes, steady breath, and a quiet mind. That's how you become mentally tough. That's how you build real resilience, not by chance, not by accident, but by choosing discomfort on purpose, every day, one small challenge at a time, until one day you realize the storm doesn't shake you anymore. You've become the storm. 5. Control what you can, release what you can't. You ever notice how quickly a perfectly good day can fall apart? You spill coffee on your shirt, someone cuts you off in traffic, your boss sends a snarky email. Suddenly your peace is gone and you're spiraling. One little thing goes sideways and your whole mood gets hijacked. It's frustrating, right? Because you were trying. You were doing your best. But the world didn't cooperate. And that's the trap, believing that peace comes from things going your way. That calm depends on everything being under control. But what if it's not about controlling everything? What if it's about learning to control what actually belongs to you and letting the rest go? That's the Stoic move. That's the real flex. Stoicism teaches us that the root of so much stress and disappointment comes from confusing what's in our control with what isn't. Epictetus said it plainly: some things are up to us and some things are not. That one sentence, if truly understood, can change your life. It's not just good advice, it's a way of seeing the world. When you stop pouring energy into things you cannot change, you create space. Space to breathe, space to act, space to respond, instead of just reacting. You stop trying to wrestle the world into shape and start shaping yourself instead. Think about how often we waste our energy. We stress over someone else's opinion. We replay an awkward conversation 10 times in our head. We try to micromanage how others see us or obsess over outcomes we can't fully control. And it's exhausting, because no matter how hard you try, people will still misunderstand you, plans will still change, life will still throw curveballs. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." And the more you try to control what's not yours to hold, the more resistance you create. The more tension builds up in your mind and body. And for what? Nothing changes, except now you're anxious and burnt out. What Stoicism offers instead is a filter. Before you react, pause and ask, is this within my control? If the answer is no, let it go. If the answer is yes, handle it. That simple practice, used daily, can bring you more peace than a weekend retreat or a motivational talk ever could. Because it's practical, it gets to the root of what's actually messing with your head. You don't need to control the weather, you just need a good jacket. You don't need to control traffic, you just need to breathe and leave earlier next time. You don't need to control how others act, You just need to stay aligned with your own principles. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Notice that he doesn't promise you'll find control. He promises strength, because strength isn't about changing your environment. It's about adapting to it. It's about showing up with clarity and resilience, even when things don't go your way. And that starts with knowing where your power actually lives. Modern psychology echoes this too. The concept of locus of control is all about where people believe their power resides. Those with an internal locus of control believe they shape their outcomes through effort and attitude. Those with an external locus believe life is mostly about luck, fate, or other people's actions. Guess which group tends to be more mentally resilient, successful, and content? The ones who focus inward, who say, "I may not control what happens, but I always control how I show up." But don't get it twisted. Letting go isn't the same as giving up. It's not passive, it's strategic. The Stoics weren't about sitting back and letting life steamroll them. They believed in action, right action, but they also believed in clarity. There's no point running full speed in the wrong direction. There's no wisdom in fighting battles you can't win. Letting go of what's not yours to control isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It frees up your energy so you can focus on what actually moves the needle. Let's put this into real life. Say you're in a situation where someone's treating you unfairly. You could spend your time obsessing over their behavior, trying to fix them, replaying everything they said. Or you could pause and ask, can I control this person's mindset? Can I control how I speak to them, how I hold my boundaries, how I walk away if needed? Yes, that's your zone. That's where your energy belongs. When you stick to that zone, you gain power. Not over them, over you. Or think about your goals. You can't control whether people support your dreams. You can't control whether your post goes viral or whether someone gives you a shot. But you can control your effort, your persistence, your learning curve, your attitude on the days when nothing's working. That's where the power lives. Not in trying to bend the world to your will, but in bending your own habits toward excellence. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." That hits hard because so much of our stress is self-inflicted. We imagine worst-case scenarios. We obsess over what people might say. We rehearse failures that haven't happened yet, and most of it totally out of our hands. But we hold it anyway, gripping it like a burning coal, thinking we're being responsible. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to focus on what you can actually change. Even your emotions are part of this equation. You don't always control how you feel in the moment. Emotions rise up, sometimes out of nowhere, but you do control what you do with them. Whether you lash out, shut down, or respond with clarity, that's your domain. The Stoics believed in observing emotions without being ruled by them. You don't fight your feelings, you witness them. You create space between stimulus and response. That space, that's where your freedom lives. And it's not just about big, dramatic moments. This mindset applies in the tiny daily decisions that build your life. When someone cuts in line, when the internet goes out, when your flight gets delayed. These aren't world-ending events, but they can ruin your day if you let them. Or you can breathe, smile, shrug, control what you can, release the rest. You'd be amazed how much peace shows up when you stop letting minor things hold major power over you. Even Carl Jung believed in the power of self-awareness over external manipulation. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That quote reveals how often we give up control without even realizing it, blaming life, fate, other people, when really We're just not managing our own minds. We're reacting instead of reflecting. But the moment you slow down and ask yourself what's actually within your reach, you reclaim that power. You step out of helplessness and into agency. So if you're overwhelmed, start with this. Draw a line down a piece of paper. On one side, write what you can't control. On the other, write what you can. And let that be your guide. Let that be your anchor. Every time you feel the storm rising, go back to that list. Take action where it counts. Let go where it doesn't. That's how you stop chasing peace and start living in it. Because at the end of the day, control isn't about force. It's about focus. You don't need to master the world. You need to master yourself. And when you do, the world no longer owns you. You're steady, you're clear, you're free. 6. Refuse to play the victim. Life isn't fair, we all know that. Some people get dealt a lucky hand, born into wealth, health, support. Others start at rock bottom, fighting uphill from the beginning. And even if you have a decent start, life has a way of throwing curveballs you didn't see coming. People betray you, plans fall apart, illness hits, money runs out, opportunities slip away. And in those moments, it's easy, so easy, to start thinking, why me? It's natural to feel hurt, frustrated, even angry. But if you stay there, if you build a home in that mindset, something dangerous happens. You become the victim in your own story. You start to believe the pain is permanent, that your power is gone, that life happens to you, and all you can do is endure it. That's where most people get stuck, not in the pain itself, but in the belief that they're powerless to do anything about it. But the Stoics had a radically different take. They believed that while you can't control what life throws at you, you always control how you respond. And that response, that's where your freedom lives. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled during war, plague, and political betrayal, wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." That might sound cold at first, especially if you're hurting, but it's not about denying the pain. It's about refusing to let it define you, refusing to become someone who lives in reaction to wounds instead of choosing their next move. There's this idea floating around that pain justifies behavior, that if you've been through something hard, you get a pass for being bitter or checked out or angry at the world. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Your pain is valid, but it's not a permission slip to stay stuck. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." That quote flips the script. It reminds you that identity isn't something life stamps on you. It's something you carve out, one choice at a time, even in the middle of struggle. Let's be real, victimhood is tempting. It gives you an identity, it gives you sympathy, it gives you someone to blame. But what it doesn't give you is power. What it doesn't give you is peace. And what it definitely doesn't give you is growth. Because as long as the story is, "They hurt me and now I'm broken," you're handing over the pen. You're letting someone else write your narrative. But what if instead the story became, "They hurt me and I rose anyway. They left me and I rebuilt stronger. Life knocked me down and I got back up with more wisdom, more strength, more clarity than ever before." That story doesn't just inspire, it transforms. The Stoics believed that every obstacle could become fuel, that hardship wasn't just something to endure, it was material for virtue. That's why Epictetus, who was born into slavery and walked with a limp for most of his life, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That's not just philosophy, that's a survival strategy. Because life is full of pain, but suffering is optional. Suffering is what happens when you let the pain linger, when you build your personality around it. when you let it own you instead of learning from it. Now, I'm not saying you should bottle it up. The Stoics weren't robots. They felt things deeply. What they practiced was emotional sovereignty, the ability to feel pain without being ruled by it, to let it pass through you without letting it stay and decorate the walls. Think about the difference between grieving and wallowing. One honors what's lost, the other gets addicted to feeling stuck. And if you've been in that place, you know what it's like. It's heavy, it's draining, and it starts to feel like your identity. But you are not your worst moment. You are not your trauma. You are not what they did to you. You are what you do next. That's where power lives, not in pretending everything's okay, but in refusing to let it break you. And this isn't just Stoic wisdom, it's echoed in modern psychology. Therapists talk about post-traumatic growth, the phenomenon where people, after going through extreme hardship, actually emerge stronger, wiser, more compassionate. Why? Because pain forced them to face themselves. It stripped away illusions. It clarified their values. It made them take their growth seriously. And that transformation, that starts the moment you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can I learn from this? How do I rise from here?" You have to stop hoping for the past to rewrite itself, because it won't. The healing won't be perfect. The climb won't be clean. But the power you build along the way, that's yours to keep. So how do you start shifting out of victim mode? It begins with awareness. Notice the stories you're telling yourself. Are they rooted in helplessness or growth? Are you rehearsing your pain or rewriting your power? Next, take responsibility, not for what happened, but for what happens next. Your healing is your job. Your peace is your responsibility. That doesn't mean you go it alone, but it does mean you stop waiting for someone else to fix it for you. The Stoics practiced reflection every day. They asked, "Did I act according to my values today? Did I let emotion control me? Did I live with integrity even when things were hard?" That kind of daily inventory is powerful. It keeps you honest. It keeps you moving forward. And most importantly, it keeps you from slipping back into blame. So if you've been through something, if life's hit you hard, don't hide it, but don't let it shrink you either. Use it, mold it, build with it. Let it teach you compassion, patience, focus, resilience. Let it sharpen your edges and deepen your wisdom. That's how you turn pain into purpose. That's how you take your power back. 7. Delay gratification, build freedom. There's a strange trick our minds play on us. We know what's good for us. We know what we should be doing. But in the moment, when the phone buzzes, the snacks are calling, the couch looks cozy, it's like our whole brain short-circuits. Suddenly, we're choosing what feels good right now over what actually matters. One more scroll, one more bite, one more excuse. We tell ourselves we'll get to the important stuff later, but later turns into never. And slowly, quietly, we start trading our potential for pleasure, not because we're weak, not because we're lazy, but because no one taught us how to master the space between impulse and action. That space is where freedom lives, and that's exactly where the Stoics focused their energy. Stoicism teaches us that the enemy of a strong life isn't hardship, it's indulgence. Comfort, when overused, doesn't nurture us, it numbs us. Because here's the hard truth. Every time you give in to an impulse, you reinforce the belief that your desires control you. But every time you delay gratification, you take that power back. This isn't about becoming joyless or rigid. The Stoics weren't anti-pleasure. They just believed in choosing the right kind of pleasure, the kind that endures. Epictetus warned that pleasure can become a trap, something that enslaves us if we pursue it blindly. He said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Pleasure is one of those things. The world is full of temptations that promise happiness and deliver nothing but distraction. Social media, junk food, binge-watching, gossip, they all offer quick hits of dopamine. But what do they leave you with afterward? Guilt, regret, emptiness. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents." That might sound unrelated, but it's deeply connected. Because when we constantly choose short-term comfort over long-term purpose, we create a life we never fully inhabit. A life that's safe but small, numb but not peaceful. We pass down patterns of avoidance, procrastination, and craving, and we call it normal. But it's not normal. It's just common. And what's common isn't always wise. Delaying gratification is a practice, not a personality trait. No one is born with perfect willpower. It's a muscle you build, one choice at a time. You start by paying attention to the little moments, the ones that seem harmless. That moment when you're tempted to check your phone while working. That urge to grab something sugary even when you're not hungry. That tiny voice that says, "Just skip it today, you've earned a break." Those are the training grounds. The more you notice, the more you regain control. The more you say, "Not now," the stronger your self-trust becomes. And trust me, self-trust is the real reward. Seneca wrote, "Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power." That line gets at the core of this principle. When you delay gratification, you stop living at the mercy of your moods. You stop being a slave to every craving. You start becoming someone who chooses their actions, not because of pressure, not because of impulse, but because of clarity. And clarity is the most underrated superpower in the modern world. Let's be honest. Our entire culture is designed to hijack your attention. Apps are built to be addictive. Ads are tailored to your desires. Fast food is engineered to bypass your brain's brakes. The world doesn't want you to delay gratification. It wants you to consume right now as often as possible. So if you choose restraint, if you choose to step back and say, "No, I'll wait, I'll earn it, I'll grow through the process," you're not just being disciplined, you're being rebellious. You're taking a stand against a world that profits off your impulsivity. Even modern neuroscience backs this up. Studies on delayed gratification, like the famous marshmallow test, show that people who can wait, who can sit with discomfort, tend to have better outcomes in almost every area of life. They're healthier, wealthier, more stable, more fulfilled. Why? Because they don't burn their energy on chasing every shiny object. They invest it in what really matters. And that kind of life isn't built in a single decision. It's built in hundreds of tiny ones. Every time you wait instead of grab, breathe instead of scroll, follow through instead of flake, you're laying the bricks of freedom. Now here's the shift that makes it easier. Stop thinking of discipline as deprivation. Think of it as direction. You're not saying no because you're rigid. You're saying no because you've chosen a deeper yes. A yes to your long-term well-being. A yes to your potential. A yes to living a life that actually reflects your values, not just your impulses. That's not cold. That's powerful. You don't need a medal or applause for showing restraint. You feel it in your bones. You wake up clearer. You walk taller. You speak with more integrity. You look in the mirror and respect the person staring back at you. Not because they're perfect, but because they're in control. Of course, this doesn't mean you never rest. It doesn't mean you grind 24/7 or shame yourself for wanting comfort. It means you stop letting short-term pleasure be the default. You start choosing your responses instead of reacting. You start asking better questions like, will this serve me tomorrow? Am I escaping or engaging? Is this bringing me peace or just temporary relief? The Stoics were clear. We are not our urges. We are not our cravings. We are not the fleeting thoughts that tempt us to quit. We are the ones who decide. And when we delay gratification, even in the smallest ways, we step into that power. We stop chasing and start choosing. That's how you build freedom. That's how you become someone who lives by design, not by default. So start small. Delay checking your phone for 10 minutes. Skip the junk food once today. Say no to a distraction so you can finish what you started. Don't underestimate these little acts. They're not just moments, they're momentum. And every time you win that tiny inner battle, you get stronger, you get clearer, you become a little more unshakable. Because in the end, this isn't just about self-control, it's about self-respect. It's about refusing to let your lower self, your reactive self, run the show. And when you train that over and over again, the world starts to feel different, calmer, simpler, more in your hands. Not because the world changed, but because you did. And that kind of change, that's the kind that sticks. That's the kind that frees you. Not someday, but right now. 8. Ignore the noise, especially naysayers. There's a moment that happens every time you try to change. Every time you step forward, make a decision, or do something different. The moment isn't loud, but it's powerful. It's when someone raises an eyebrow, rolls their eyes, or says something subtle like, "You really think you can do that?" That moment, that's the noise. It can come from strangers on the internet or people you love the most. It's judgment, criticism, side comments, or even silence where you expected support. And if you're not careful, it will crawl under your skin and start shaping your choices. Not because it's true, but because we've been trained to take it personally, to let other people's opinions weigh more than our own. But here's the truth. If you want to build discipline, if you want to live with intention, you're going to have to learn to ignore the noise. This isn't easy. We're social creatures. We're wired to seek approval and avoid rejection. In ancient times, being excluded meant real danger. That wiring still lives in us. It's why criticism stings. It's why praise feels so good. But Stoicism teaches us to evolve past that instinct, to stop basing our peace on external reactions. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." That line hits deep, because it reveals the contradictions so many of us live with. We say we want freedom, but hand the keys to everyone around us. The Stoics didn't believe in isolating themselves. They weren't outcasts. They were leaders, thinkers, and family men. But they drew a line. Their identity wasn't for sale. They didn't need the crowd to clap before they acted. They aimed to live with virtue, not validation. And that's the shift. When your goal stops being popularity and starts being integrity, the noise loses its grip. Let's get practical. Say you decide to make a change, start a new routine, quit drinking, launch a business, speak your truth. It's almost guaranteed someone will doubt you, not always out of malice, but because your change threatens their comfort. Your discipline challenges their excuses. Your clarity reflects their confusion. And instead of dealing with their discomfort, they project it onto you. They mock, minimize, or question, not because you're wrong, but because you're different. And difference scares people. Here's the trap. Trying to silence the noise by pleasing everyone. It never works. You say yes when you mean no. You water down your voice. You live a life that's technically fine, but never truly yours. And after enough time, the voice you start ignoring isn't theirs. It's your own. Your intuition, your calling, your truth. That's the cost of approval. It comes at the expense of authenticity. So how do you build the courage to ignore the noise? You start by deciding who gets a seat at your table. Not everyone's opinion deserves your energy. Create what Brené Brown calls a square squad, a small group of people whose input actually matters because they know your values and your vision. Everyone else? Background noise. Let them talk. Let them doubt. You don't owe them an explanation for living your truth. In today's world, where everyone has a platform and a comment section, staying grounded in who you are is revolutionary. It's easy to join the crowd. It's easy to say what's popular, but discipline requires focus. And focus requires silence. Not from the world, but from within. When your inner voice becomes louder than the world's opinions, that's when you start moving differently. Even in modern psychology, we see how detrimental it is to base our identity on external validation. It leads to anxiety, insecurity, burnout. Why? Because you're constantly performing. You're always adjusting your behavior to match the shifting preferences of others. That's not growth, that's survival mode. But discipline, real growth, that comes from choosing your path and sticking to it, whether the world claps or walks away. Here's something powerful the Stoics understood. Most of the time, the criticism isn't even about you. It's a mirror. You represent something they haven't figured out how to face. Your commitment highlights their inconsistency. Your action exposes their inaction. And instead of owning that, they lash out. That's not your problem to fix. That's not your weight to carry. When you start filtering out the noise, something amazing happens. You begin to hear yourself again. You remember what you value, what you believe in, what you're capable of. And from that place, you move with clarity, not arrogance, not defensiveness, just quiet, grounded conviction. That's what the Stoics aimed for. Not ego, not performance, but presence. So if the world is barking at your progress, let it bark. If people are gossiping about your choices, let them talk. You've got work to do. And if you stay disciplined, stay anchored, stay true, you'll start seeing results that speak louder than words ever could. And by the time they realize you were serious, you'll be too far ahead to hear the noise anymore. Because in the end, it's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right, living in alignment, staying focused, and building a life that makes you proud. That's the only voice that truly matters. And once you learn to trust it, the rest becomes background static. Just wind at your back as you walk your path. 9. Emulate the wise, not the loud. Ever notice how the loudest voices often say the least meaningful things? We live in a world where volume gets mistaken for value. The more someone shouts, the more attention they get. But attention doesn't equal wisdom. And just because someone has a microphone or a following doesn't mean they have a message worth absorbing. Real growth, real self-discipline comes from choosing your influences with care. It's about being intentional with who you watch, who you listen to, and who you model your life after. Because, like it or not, we become like the people we surround ourselves with, online and offline. Marcus Aurelius made this incredibly clear in the opening of his Meditations. He listed all the people who shaped his character, his mentors, his teachers, even his family members, and outlined the specific virtues he learned from each one: patience, integrity, simplicity, courage, kindness. He didn't just respect them, he studied them. He copied their behavior, their mindset, their way of showing up in the world. He didn't try to invent a new way to be good. He simply learned from those who already walked the path well. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. We tend to think of role models as a childhood thing, something for kids who are figuring out the world. But the truth is, we never stop learning through imitation. The only difference is that, as adults, we often do it unconsciously. We pick up habits, attitudes, even values just by being around certain people or content. That's why it's dangerous to let the loudest, flashiest voices guide your attention, not because they're all bad, but because many of them are empty. Influencers who look polished but lack principles, celebrities who preach self-love but live for external validation, coaches who sell motivation but haven't lived discipline. Stoicism challenges that. It reminds us to look beyond the noise, to look for depth, to look for proof. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Think about that. Who are you allowing to transform you? Who's shaping your reactions, your thoughts, your direction? You don't need to be paranoid, but you do need to be aware, because transformation happens either way. You're either growing into your potential or absorbing someone else's limitations. There's no middle ground. So how do you choose better influences? Start by observing, not idolizing. Watch how disciplined people live. How do they handle stress? How do they speak about others when no one's listening? How do they treat their time, their health, their promises? Look for those who are calm in chaos, kind without weakness, clear without arrogance. They exist. You just have to pay attention. And when you find them, don't just admire them, study them. Ask, what mindset allows them to stay steady when others fold? What habits do they keep no matter how they feel? These aren't superhumans. They're humans who chose virtue over ego again and again. But you should be intentional, especially when it comes to your mental environment. The voices you hear every day, whether from friends, podcasts, books, or social media, they shape what you believe is possible, and more importantly, what you believe is normal. If you only follow people who glorify hustle but never rest, you'll burn out thinking you're just not trying hard enough. If you surround yourself with cynics, you'll start doubting your own dreams. But if you immerse yourself in wisdom, in discipline, in patience, in long-term thinking, you begin to shift, slowly, quietly, powerfully. There's also a subtle trap in idolizing charisma over character. Some people have a magnetic energy. They're confident, bold, articulate. They can draw a crowd without saying much of value. And that's fine, unless you start copying them. Because charisma might win attention, but it doesn't build character. The Stoics weren't interested in being impressive. They were interested in being honest, in living a life that felt strong on the inside, not just looked good on the outside. You might be wondering, how do I know who to trust, who to follow? Start with one question. Does this person live what they preach? Not just once, consistently, especially when it's hard. That's where true discipline shows. Not in the highlight reel, but in the moments no one sees. And if you can find even one person like that, one real-life model of quiet strength and integrity, you're lucky. But even if you can't, the beauty of our time is that we can access the wisdom of the ages. Read Marcus, read Seneca, read Epictetus. Their voices have outlasted empires. Why? Because they spoke truth, not trends. And here's the cool part. When you start modeling the wise, you become someone worth modeling, not out of ego, but out of alignment. You start walking with more purpose, making decisions from principle, not pressure. And people notice. Your presence becomes a reflection of your discipline. Not perfect, but grounded. Not loud, but clear. So maybe you don't need more motivation. Maybe you need better models. People whose lives speak louder than their words. People who remind you what's possible when you stay true to your values, no matter how loud the world gets. That's what Stoicism offers, a blueprint for character, a path walked by giants. And all you have to do, start walking in their steps, quietly, consistently, one choice at a time. 10. Reflect every night. Most people go to bed thinking about what they didn't get done, what someone said that annoyed them, or what's waiting for them tomorrow. We scroll, we distract, we avoid. But what if the most powerful moment of your day isn't in the morning when you're planning everything, but at night, when you stop and actually look at how you lived, not to beat yourself up, not to dramatize, but to reflect? That's where transformation lives. The Stoics knew this. They didn't just live with discipline, they reviewed it. Every night, quietly, honestly. They weren't chasing perfection, they were sharpening awareness. Seneca once wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." That line might sound dramatic, but it's deeply practical. He wasn't writing poetry, he was practicing self-mastery. And the beauty of this habit? Anyone can do it. You don't need anything fancy, just a quiet moment, a pen, a few questions. Let's be honest. It's easy to tell yourself you're doing your best, that you're disciplined, that you're growing. But it's a different thing entirely to face the reality of your actions. Did you follow through on what you said you'd do? Did you keep your cool when tested? Did you waste time or use it wisely? These are the kinds of questions most people avoid because they're uncomfortable. But Stoicism isn't about comfort, it's about clarity. And clarity requires honesty. You can't change what you don't see. You can't grow what you're not measuring. Reflection is how you shine a light on your blind spots. It's how you catch the small lies you tell yourself. "I didn't have time" really means I didn't make time. "I was too tired" sometimes means I avoided discomfort. When you write these patterns down day after day, you start to see yourself clearly. And that's when things start to shift. But reflection isn't about shame. It's not about calling yourself a failure. It's about collecting data. You're not the judge. You're the observer. Just like an athlete watches the game tape, not to feel guilty, but to get better. Your journal becomes your coach, your mirror, a place where you can celebrate wins, acknowledge slips, and recalibrate. That's how discipline gets reinforced, not by forcing yourself, but by understanding yourself. Marcus Aurelius kept a journal not for the public, but for himself. Meditations wasn't a book, it was a series of private notes, reminders to stay grounded, to stay virtuous, to stay disciplined in the face of chaos. Think about that. If the Emperor of Rome made time to reflect, what excuse do we really have? He understood that reflection isn't a luxury, it's a necessity, especially if you want to live intentionally. And it doesn't need to take hours. Sometimes a few lines are enough. Where did I rise today? Where did I fall short? What lesson can I carry into tomorrow? Those three questions alone can shift your entire mindset because they force you to slow down, to stop reacting and start responding. That's what discipline really is, choosing a better response. And you can't choose better if you're not aware of your patterns. The benefits aren't just philosophical, they're psychological. Studies in modern psychology show that reflective journaling can reduce anxiety, boost performance, and improve emotional regulation. Why? Because when we name our experience, we gain control over it. We stop feeling overwhelmed and start feeling focused. Writing gives structure to our thoughts. It takes the chaos in our heads and lays it out in front of us, where we can actually work with it. But here's the part most people miss. Reflection is only useful if you're honest. You can't just write what sounds good. You have to write what's real. I procrastinated on that task because I was afraid it wouldn't be perfect. I snapped at that person because I was already stressed and didn't take a breath. I didn't follow through because I let comfort win. That kind of honesty is uncomfortable, but it's also freeing. Because once you name it, you can face it. And once you face it, you can fix it. Reflection is how you access what lies within. It's how you check if your actions actually match your values. It's how you turn intentions into integrity. And it's one of the simplest, most overlooked tools for building self-discipline. Of course, some nights you won't want to do it. You'll be tired. You'll feel like skipping it. And that's exactly when it matters most, because discipline is a muscle. The more you train it, the more it shows up for you, especially when motivation doesn't. Some of the most important breakthroughs happen on the days you almost didn't show up. And when you write through the resistance, you prove to yourself that your word matters. There's also something sacred about ending the day with awareness. The world is loud. Days move fast. But when you sit down and reflect, even for 5 minutes, you reclaim your time. You take the chaos of the day and turn it into clarity. You turn motion into meaning. And over time, those small reflections compound. You start noticing patterns. I'm always anxious on days I skip my morning routine. I do better when I plan my top 3 priorities the night before. I'm calmer when I journal before bed. These aren't random insights. They're hard-earned wisdom. And wisdom, once you own it, becomes a kind of armor. Stoicism wasn't about having all the answers. It was about asking the right questions. Questions that challenge you. Questions that center you. Questions that grow you. And reflection is where those questions live. That's why Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Nightly reflection is how you do that, not with grand declarations, but with quiet consistency, with a pen in your hand and your eyes on the truth. So tonight, instead of scrolling yourself to sleep, try this. Grab a notebook, sit with your thoughts, ask yourself, did I live today with intention? Did I honor my values or drift from them? What would the wiser version of me have done differently? Not to judge, just to learn. Because the more you learn from your own life, the less you repeat the same mistakes. And the more you live by design, not default. Reflection doesn't fix everything overnight, but it changes your direction, and direction, over time, changes your destiny. So if you want to build real self-discipline, not just talk about it, start here. End your day with your own truth. Listen to your own voice. Learn from your own choices. That's how you become stronger, calmer, wiser, one honest night at a time. 11. Master the morning, win the day. There's something sacred about the early morning hours. It's quiet, it's still. The world hasn't yet started shouting its demands at you, and for a brief moment, you're alone with yourself. Before the emails, the deadlines, the opinions, the scroll holes. But let's be honest, most of us ruin this gift without even thinking. We wake up, grab our phone, and bam, we're already reacting to messages, to news, to the weight of the world. We lose control of our day before it even begins. And then we wonder why everything feels chaotic, rushed, and overwhelming. But what if that first hour could be different? What if instead of reacting, you chose to lead? The Stoics were masters of internal control, and they understood the importance of preparing your mind before you step into the world. Marcus Aurelius, before dealing with armies, politics, and the pressures of an empire, would start his mornings with reflection. He'd write to himself, not for anyone else, but as a way of strengthening his inner framework. He reminded himself, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." That's not just poetic, that's powerful. He was setting his mind to gratitude and focus before the noise of the day could steal it. Think of your morning as a foundation. A shaky foundation leads to a shaky structure. But if you start solid, Everything built on top has a better chance of holding up. And here's the truth. You don't need to wake up at 4 a.m., meditate for 2 hours, or drink mushroom coffee while hanging upside down. You just need a routine that centers you, something that reminds you of who you are and what matters before the world tells you who to be and what to care about. Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." That's what mornings are for, waking up on the inside. It's your time to check in with your own values, not just your inbox. So many people start their day by plugging into everyone else's agenda. And guess what? If you don't set your own priorities, someone else will set them for you. And their priorities probably don't include your peace, your growth, or your purpose. Imagine starting your day with just 10 minutes of silence. No phone, no notifications. Just breathe. Just you. In those 10 minutes, your nervous system calms down, your thoughts settle. You get to choose your first feeling of the day before anxiety has a chance to sneak in. And once your mind is clear, you can anchor it with intention. That might mean journaling. It might mean reviewing your goals. It might just mean asking yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? Not what do I have to do, but how do I want to show up? Seneca wrote, "If a person doesn't know to which port they sail, no wind is favorable." That quote hits hard, because that's what most mornings look like, rudderless. People get up and start drifting, pulled by whatever current shows up first. A text, a headline, a wave of stress. But when you start your day with clarity, even small tasks become meaningful. You're no longer reacting to life, you're directing it. And let's talk about discipline. Everyone wants more of it, but few realize how much of it is shaped by your morning. Your first few decisions each day send a message to your brain. Are we running this show, or are we just winging it again? If you hit snooze 10 times, skip breakfast, and doom scroll for 45 minutes, you've already trained your brain to be distracted and reactive. But if you wake up, take a breath, and do something aligned with your values, even if it's tiny, you've just taken command. That's how discipline starts. Not with hype, but with habits. Now, you don't need a perfect morning routine to be successful. But you do need an intentional one. One that helps you reconnect to your purpose. Even 5 quiet minutes can make the difference between a calm, focused morning and a scrambled, anxious one. Over time, those minutes become momentum, and momentum becomes identity. I'm the kind of person who starts my day with intention. That's a powerful story to live out. Modern psychology backs this up too. Studies have shown that people who start their day with self-directed activities, like journaling, mindfulness, or light planning, experience more focus, productivity, and emotional stability throughout the day. Why? Because your brain isn't overwhelmed by input. It has space to think, to decide, to lead. That space is rare, and you only get it if you protect it. And that's the thing. The world will never protect your peace for you. You have to guard it, especially in the morning, because once your day begins, everyone wants a piece of you, your energy, your time, your attention. And if you're not anchored by then, you'll get pulled in every direction and call it being busy. But busyness isn't the same as purpose. In fact, it's often the opposite. So here's the challenge. Reclaim your morning, not to be productive for productivity's sake, but to live with clarity, with self-leadership, with depth. Start small. Maybe it's writing down 3 things you're grateful for. Maybe it's reading a single paragraph from a Stoic text. Maybe it's setting your top 3 intentions for the day. Whatever it is, make it yours. Make it sacred. It's not about being perfect. Some mornings will be messy. You'll oversleep. You'll feel off. That's okay. Discipline isn't about flawless execution, it's about consistent return. You come back, you recommit, you begin again. That's the Stoic way, to show up, not because it's easy, but because it's right. So tomorrow morning, when the alarm goes off, try this. Pause. Don't check your phone. Don't open your inbox. Just breathe. Remind yourself, I don't control the chaos out there, but I do control how I start. And in that moment, you've already won. Because you've remembered something the world will try to make you forget, that you are in charge of your life. And every single day, you get to prove it, starting the moment you wake up. 12. Don't let emotions hijack you. It's wild how quickly emotions can take over. 1 second you're calm, collected, just going about your day, and the next, someone cuts you off in traffic. You get an unexpected message that ruins your vibe. Someone makes a passive-aggressive comment, and before you even realize what's happening, your whole nervous system is on fire. Heart pounding, mind racing. You're not thinking, you're reacting. And in that split second, the emotion hijacks your focus, your energy, and your behavior. We've all been there, that moment when a temporary feeling takes the wheel and crashes your whole day. But here's something most people forget. Feeling something doesn't mean you have to obey it. That's not just psychology. That's ancient Stoic wisdom. The Stoics didn't deny their emotions. They weren't emotionless robots. They felt. But they refused to let those feelings make their decisions. Epictetus said it best. It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things. The anger, the anxiety, the fear. It's not the event that causes the chaos. It's how you interpret the event. That's the lever. That's where your power is. Not in controlling the world, but in choosing your response to it. Now let's be real. This isn't easy. Emotions hit fast. They hit deep. And they feel real. When someone disrespects you, it feels like an attack. When fear shows up, your body believes it's in danger, even when it's not. But this is where emotional self-discipline becomes crucial. It's not about ignoring emotions. It's about pausing long enough to question them, to give yourself that extra breath, that extra heartbeat to say, wait, is this helpful? Is this even true? That tiny pause can change everything. Carl Jung once said, emotion is the chief source of becoming conscious. There can be no transforming of darkness into light without emotion. That's a powerful perspective. Emotions aren't the enemy. They're teachers, signals, clues about what matters to you. But if you don't learn to manage them, they don't transform you. They consume you. And that's the difference between reacting and responding, between compulsion and control. That's not weakness, that's power. Because let's be honest, anyone can lash out. Anyone can let their emotions control them. That takes no effort. What's rare, what's impressive, is restraint, calm under fire. The ability to hold your center while the world tries to shake it loose. That's what builds true inner strength. Not suppression, but separation. The ability to create space between stimulus and response. And here's the thing, this isn't just ancient wisdom. Modern psychology backs it up. There's a concept called affect labeling, which basically means naming your emotions. When you say, I feel angry, or I feel anxious, you're actually engaging your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain. Just naming the feeling lowers its intensity. Why? Because you're no longer in it. You're observing it. And the moment you observe it, you've taken a step back. You've broken the hijack. So, how do you build this skill? Practice, repetition, reflection. You have to train yourself to slow down. That means recognizing your triggers. Maybe it's being interrupted. Maybe it's disrespect. Maybe it's feeling ignored or misunderstood. We all have emotional buttons. But once you know what yours are, you can start creating that space. You can catch the flare-up before it becomes a fire. Seneca had a whole essay on anger. He said, "The best remedy for anger is delay." So simple, so underrated. Delay. Don't send the angry text. Don't storm out. Don't clap back online. Wait, walk, write it out, breathe, and watch how the emotion loses its grip. Because most emotions are like waves. They rise, they crash, they recede. But if you act while they're peaking, you end up regretting it once the tide's gone. Let's take anxiety. It's one of the most common emotions that hijacks people. You get a bad feeling in your chest, and suddenly your brain spirals into the worst-case scenario. What if I mess up? What if they don't like me? What if I fail? But here's what most people don't realize. Anxiety is often just misplaced energy. It's a signal, not a sentence. It's your brain trying to prepare you, not punish you. So instead of running from it, face it. Ask, what am I actually afraid of? Is this real, or is it just a story I'm telling myself? Again, that's what the Stoics were trying to teach. Don't trust your first reaction. Don't give your emotions the keys to your life. Use them, learn from them, but lead with reason. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That's radical responsibility, and it's the path to emotional freedom. Now look, none of this means you shouldn't feel. Emotions make us human. They connect us, inspire us, guide us, but only when we own them, not when they own us. Emotional discipline isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear, grounded, wise. It's about being able to say, "I feel anger, but I don't have to act angry." Or, "I feel fear, but I can still move forward." That's emotional maturity. That's Stoic strength. Carl Jung also said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." So the next time something lights you up inside, stop, ask, what is this really about? What story am I telling myself? And what would my higher self do right now? Over time, those moments of pause add up. You start to notice your patterns. You begin to catch yourself before the damage is done. And one day, without even realizing it, you find yourself in a situation that would have triggered you before, and you just breathe. You stay calm. You speak with intention. You act instead of reacting. And in that moment, you're not just emotionally disciplined, you're free. Because that's what this is really about. Freedom. The ability to choose your state, your words, your path, no matter what's happening around you. That's the essence of Stoicism. That's the promise of self-mastery. And it's available to you, not by numbing out, but by waking up, by noticing the emotion, honoring it, and then responding from a place of truth, not just habit. 13. Say no. More often. Let's get honest for a second. How many times have you said yes when every part of you wanted to say no? You weren't interested, you were tired, you had other plans. But something in you, maybe guilt, maybe fear, maybe habit, pushed out a reluctant sure. And just like that, another chunk of your time, energy, or peace was gone. That's how we lose our lives. Not in big dramatic moments, but in small, quiet surrenders. One yes at a time. The Stoics had a name for this kind of misalignment. They called it living against nature, not nature in the trees and flowers sense, but in terms of your inner nature, your values, your direction. When you constantly say yes to things that conflict with your purpose, you're not just being nice, you're being divided, pulled in directions that weaken your will and blur your focus. Epictetus warned against this very thing when he said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Translation: say no, even when it's unpopular. Saying no is not about being rude or selfish, it's about being clear. Clear on your priorities, clear on your boundaries, clear on what actually matters to you. Because every yes is really a trade. You're saying no to something else, your workout, your writing time, your rest, your peace. And the thing is, most of us aren't aware we're making that trade until it's too late, until we're overwhelmed, until resentment creeps in, until we feel like our life belongs to everyone but us. If you want to grow spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you have to protect your time like it's sacred, because it is. Every moment spent doing something misaligned is a moment you can't get back. Discipline isn't just about routines and checklists. It's about knowing when to say no to things that pull you away from the person you're trying to become. Now let's talk about how it feels. Because let's be honest, saying no feels uncomfortable. It brings up guilt, fear of disappointing people, fear of looking selfish, fear of missing out. But here's the thing. Your fear is not a reason to abandon your discipline. It's a signal that you're growing, that you're moving from approval-seeking to value-seeking, from trying to be liked to trying to live right. Most people are addicted to being agreeable. We've been taught that politeness is more important than authenticity, but discipline doesn't live in people-pleasing. It lives in integrity, in showing up for your life like it matters, in standing guard at the door of your energy and asking, does this deserve me? Because you don't just give time, you give yourself. And not everything is worthy of that gift. Saying no also requires vision. You have to know what you're saying yes to, deep down. If you don't have a clear purpose, you'll say yes to everything, because nothing feels more important than anything else. That's why Stoicism puts so much emphasis on knowing what's up to you, your values, your time, your focus. If you're grounded in those things, saying no gets easier. It's not rejection, it's redirection. It's not cold, it's committed. And don't get it twisted. Saying no doesn't mean shutting people out. It means showing up with intention, saying yes when it's true and no when it's not. That's how trust is built, not just with others, but with yourself. Because every time you say no to something misaligned, you're reinforcing your own sense of self-respect. You're telling yourself, my energy is valuable. My goals matter. My peace matters. That inner dialogue shapes who you become. Seneca once wrote, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." That line hits different in today's world, doesn't it? We're pulled in 100 directions. Social invites, work requests, DMS, distractions. Everyone wants a piece of us. And if we don't get intentional, we end up scattered, spread thin, living half-lives. That's why no is one of the most powerful tools in your discipline arsenal. It's not a rejection, it's a shield. Let's take a practical look. Let's say you're working on a personal project, something important to you, and a friend asks you to hang out again. You've said yes 10 times already, even when it cost you sleep, focus, or your routine. Now it's time to say no. Not out of bitterness, but out of alignment. Hey, I'd love to, but I need to focus on this tonight. Hope you understand. That one sentence, that's self-leadership in action. That's training your brain to value your own word, not just others' feelings. And sure, some people won't get it. They'll say you've changed, that you're too focused, too distant. But that's okay, because the more you evolve, the more your boundaries will frustrate people who benefited from your lack of them. Don't let guilt talk you out of growth. Carl Jung also said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Part of that acceptance is knowing what you need and being unafraid to protect it. This isn't about perfection. You'll slip. You'll say yes to things you shouldn't. You'll overextend. But that's part of the process. What matters is that you notice, that you adjust, that you start asking the deeper questions. Does this align with who I'm becoming? Does this support the life I want? And if not, give yourself permission to decline, with love, with respect, with clarity. Because here's the truth: every no to distraction is a yes to discipline. Every no to chaos is a yes to calm. Every no to temporary approval is a yes to long-term peace. That's the trade, and it's worth it. So the next time your phone lights up with a request, pause, breathe, don't react, reflect, ask, is this aligned? Do I actually want to do this? Is this helping me stay true to myself? And if the answer is no, say it, kindly, clearly, and walk away with your peace intact. That's not weakness, that's strength. That's what it means to live by principle instead of pressure, to value your own opinion over noise, to build a life rooted in truth, not trends. 14. Use time like it's gold, because it is. You ever look at the clock, realize it's already evening, like somehow the hours slipped through your fingers while you were busy doing what exactly? Checking your phone, clicking through videos, answering emails you don't even remember writing. Yeah, we've all been there. And that quiet panic that hits you at the end of a wasted day. That's not just guilt. That's your inner self saying you're spending something you'll never get back. Think about how careful people are with money, budgeting, saving, tracking expenses. But when it comes to time, we throw it around like it's endless. We'll spend 5 hours binging a show we don't even love, but hesitate to spend 20 minutes meditating, journaling, calling someone we care about, or pursuing a goal that actually means something. And we wonder why we feel empty. Time is gold, not flashy gold, but sacred gold. The kind that can't be mined or printed or traded. You can't store it. You can't earn more. Every day you wake up with a full account, and by nightfall, it's been drained. No refunds, no rollover minutes. The only question is, what did you spend it on? Let's zoom in on how time gets hijacked. First, there's the obvious stuff. Mindless scrolling, watching random content, getting sucked into gossip or comparison. But it goes deeper. We lose time when we say yes to things that drain us. We lose time when we avoid hard decisions and let problems linger. We lose time when we overthink instead of act. Carl Jung once said, "The most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed." Translation: avoiding the hard stuff just steals more of your life. Facing it frees you. So how do we start treating time like gold? First, awareness. You can't change what you don't see. Take a day and track your time, not to judge, just to notice. What's getting your best hours? Is it aligned with your values or just easy to click on? That one audit can wake you up in a way no productivity hack ever will. Second, intentional structure. The Stoics believed in living on purpose. That means designing your day with care. Block out time for deep work, real focus, no distractions. Block time for rest, real rest, not half resting while scrolling your phone. Make your calendar reflect your values, not just your obligations. If something's important to your growth, schedule it like it matters, because it does. Seneca again. While we are postponing, life speeds by. That's the trap. Thinking you'll get around to it later. Thinking tomorrow will be easier. It won't. The cost of delay is always higher than it looks. Discipline means showing up today, not waiting for perfect conditions. It means starting now. And yes, that might mean cutting things out, saying no to the invitations, the distractions, the dopamine traps. Not because you're antisocial, but because you value your time more than your comfort. And let's be clear, This isn't about becoming a productivity robot. It's about building a meaningful life, one where you don't feel like time is slipping away while you're stuck in autopilot. That requires deep work, yes, but it also requires deep rest. It requires stillness, space to think, to feel, to reflect. You weren't born just to grind. You were born to grow, and growth needs rhythm, not just hustle. There's a Stoic practice worth borrowing here, the evening reflection. Every night ask yourself, how did I spend my time today? Where did I win? Where did I waste it? No guilt, no shame, just awareness. That simple practice will recalibrate your mind like nothing else. You'll start catching yourself mid-scroll. You'll think twice before overcommitting. You'll make better choices, not because someone told you to, but because you've seen the cost of wasting your life. Carl Jung also said, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. That applies to how we spend time too. Most people live outwardly, reacting to requests, notifications, noise. But when you turn inward, when you ask, what matters to me? What's my highest use today? You wake up. You reclaim time from the noise. So what does a life lived with time awareness look like? It's not rigid. It's intentional. It's full of choices that reflect who you want to be. You say no when something doesn't align. You carve space for solitude. You chase depth over distraction. You stop waiting for someday and make use of today. You read something instead of scrolling. You write the chapter, the email, the plan. You call someone instead of texting, we should catch up sometime. You go for the walk. You take the nap. You create. You reflect. You live. Because you know that once this day is gone, it's gone, and your future self will either thank you for how you used it or wish you'd done more. That's the raw truth. Every hour is a vote for the life you want, for the person you're becoming. And the more conscious you become, the less tolerant you get of wasted days. Not because you're uptight, but because you care. You care about your growth, your peace, your presence. So here's the challenge. For the next 24 hours, treat time like gold. Catch yourself before every just 5 more minutes. Choose presence over passivity. Choose purpose over autopilot. And tonight, when you reflect, ask, did I invest today or did I spend it? That one question can change your life, because in the end, it's not about managing time. It's about honoring it. It's about recognizing that this moment, right now, is your life. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now, 15th, turn pain into fuel. Let's be real. Life hits hard, sometimes out of nowhere. One day you're fine, and the next, it feels like the ground's been ripped out from under you. Maybe someone walked out. Maybe you failed at something you really cared about. Maybe you just woke up and couldn't shake the weight of everything. Pain like that? It's sharp, it burns, it feels personal. But here's what most people miss. Pain isn't just something to survive, it's something you can use. And that's the shift we have to make. We grow up thinking pain is a problem, something to avoid, something to numb or silence. We treat it like a glitch in the system instead of what it really is, a signal. Pain shows up when something matters, when there's a lesson, a truth, or a deeper version of ourselves waiting to be unearthed. We've all been through something: loss, rejection, failure, anxiety. And it's tempting to pretend it didn't happen, to bury it under distractions. But here's the thing: what you bury doesn't disappear. It festers. And the longer you avoid your pain, the more power it gains over you. The Stoics didn't believe in running from hardship. They believed in leaning into it. They practiced premeditatio malorum, the mental rehearsal of adversity. Why? Because they knew pain was coming, and when it did, they wanted to be ready. There's a story about Epictetus. A Stoic philosopher was born into slavery and crippled by his master. Literally had his leg broken, but instead of bitterness, he chose mastery. He taught that the only thing we truly control is our mind, our response. It's not what happens to you, he said, but how you react to it that matters. That's not just a quote, that's a worldview, a way to look at pain and ask, what now? Because that's where discipline is forged, in the fire of difficulty. When life tests you, you get two choices: collapse or convert. Collapse into self-pity, blame, excuses, or convert the pain into strength, into meaning, into movement. You don't have to pretend it doesn't hurt. You just have to decide that the hurt won't go to waste. That breakup, that failure, that diagnosis, that betrayal, all of it can be fuel. You just have to stop seeing it as the end of the road and start seeing it as the raw material for your rebirth. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." He didn't say ignore the pain, he said build with it. Use it the way a blacksmith uses heat to shape steel. Pain is heat. You are the steel. And here's the crazy part. Your deepest pain can become your deepest power. Think about it. The people who've been through something and used it, they don't just survive. They shine. They have empathy, grit, depth. You can feel it in the way they carry themselves, not loud or flashy, but grounded, clear, calm, like they've wrestled with life and made peace with its chaos. Let's get practical. What does turning pain into fuel actually look like? It starts with honesty. Drop the mask. Acknowledge what hurts. Say it out loud or write it down. Don't sugarcoat it. This isn't about positivity. It's about truth. Then ask, what can I learn from this? What is this pain showing me about what I value, about where I'm not free, about what I need to change? Pain is a brutal but honest teacher. If you're willing to listen, it will show you the next step. Second, channel it. Use your pain to push something forward. Work out harder. Focus deeper. Speak more honestly. Love more fiercely. Build something beautiful out of the rubble. The Stoics didn't believe in passivity. They believed in action, not loud, panicked action, but purposeful, principled, clear action. The kind that says, life hit me, but I'm still here, and I'm not done. You don't need to broadcast your pain. You don't need to perform strength. Just live it, quietly, consistently, one choice at a time. Every time you show up instead of shut down, that's you transforming pain into power. Every time you refuse to numb and choose to feel, that's alchemy. Every time you speak your truth without shame, that's growth. And no, it's not fast. There's no shortcut here. Turning pain into fuel is a slow, messy process. Some days you'll cry, some days you'll regress, some days it'll feel like nothing's changing. But over time, if you stay present, if you stay engaged, you'll realize something wild. The pain didn't break you, it built you. The scar is not a weakness, it's proof of strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look." That's what pain reveals. Not just how much you can endure, but how deep your strength runs. How unshakable your center becomes when you stop fearing hurt and start embracing growth. So here's what I want to leave you with. Whatever you're going through, it's not pointless. It's not random. It's not the end. It's an invitation to step into your power, to clarify your values, to rise from what tried to bury you. Don't wait for the pain to pass to get stronger. Get stronger while it's still here. Discipline isn't built in loud moments. It's built in the quiet choices no one sees. The way you show up, the way you speak to yourself, the way you stay true, even when it's hard. Every decision, every no, every act of self-control, it's all shaping you into something unshakable. That's the Stoic way, not to escape life's pain, but to use it, to rise through it, to become fireproof. If this resonated, don't stop here. Watch the next video on your screen. There's more wisdom waiting for you. And thank you for your presence, for being with Stoic Journal, for your focus and your willingness to grow. You're not just watching a video, you're walking the path.